This isn't a normal gardening book. It's not about me, it's a space for you to record what's happening in your garden, but I've provided general information that you might forget and need to have on hand quickly. It's about helping you to become a better gardener. I have been gardening for over 30 years in my house by the sea, and I love the ever-changing nature of gardening. The passing of the seasons, the challenge of the weather, and it expands my creativity and my ability with every year that passes. I wrote this because I needed somewhere to put down the information of when I'm sowing, what seeds I'm sowing, what plants I'm planting, where I'm putting them, and I also wanted to put some information that I'm always having to look up and I can't keep in my head. And I didn't want a diary because I didn't want that regimentation and pressure of having to put something down every day. So I made the book, and then I thought it might be useful for other gardeners too. My primary goal for this was to put information that is needed on a frequent basis right at my fingertips, and to create an organised approach of sectional note-taking. And then over the years we'll have this lovely record of effort and pleasure and a history of your garden just in this lovely book. I enjoyed most about the writing process is thinking about what I forget and what I need to remember, so that will go in the book. Researching it and trying and making it as clear and simple as possible, and then putting in some signposting for people who need a bit more information. The hardest part of this book was getting the balance right between giving too much information and maybe not enough space for gardeners to write their notes, because I want this book to be their book, more about them and not too much of me. If you're new to gardening, take a year to see how it develops, and while you're taking that year, I'd take yourself off and visit some gardens because they're full of inspiration. I've got a little part in my notebook that helps you with that. And also, if you've got friends whose gardens you admire, don't be afraid of asking them for some advice and help. Most importantly, don't be frightened. Gardening is all about trial and error, so have a go and enjoy it. As a disabled gardener with very short arms, I get very close to plants, which means I really think about what I'm going to put in my garden. So I don't want things with too many thorns, I don't want things with poisonous sap, and also I can't cut with more than secateurs, so I choose things with stems that can manage that, and that usually means perennial plants, which is great because I love lots of flowers. I enjoy growing vegetables the most, annuals, because they're easy to manage and they come up, they give you food, then they die back, and I get a few months off and I can be lazy. I love gardening tools. I've got a section in my book that shows you how to maintain some of them and keep them in good order, and also it lists all my favourite ones, but my top three. The first one's my garden claw, which I couldn't do without. It's long handled and it rotates and loosens the soil without being too disruptive around the plants, and then I can weed out the weeds with my toes. The second one is my ARS rose pruner, and it's a long handled one, so it allows me to prune without getting stabbed to death by the thorns. And the third one is a twin pronged weeder, and it works very well with my arms, and it allows me to do weeding with my hands, and this is an old favourite. Prioritising tasks and managing my time is a little bit of a bugbear in my household, as I'm totally easily distracted and full of ideas and jump from one thing to another, so I have to be really disciplined, write a list and work through it. I'm an RHS ambassador, and that for me is a total privilege, because the RHS are the place to go to for information, support and for education, and their online resource is just so well laid out and easy to understand for any gardener, no matter what your ability is. To get reliable success, I use note-taking and always have done, and that's what my garden notes book is about, to help people to record their successes and their failures so that they don't make them again the following year. They can look back, they can see, oh, that seed didn't work, or that was really easy to grow, I'm going to grow it again. Because we all want to be better gardeners, and by having a reference, you can be. I'm quite good at high-pressured situations and tight deadlines. Having a disability robs you of time, and so you have to be very careful about how you manage what time you've got. So time allocation and job allocation is something that I'm used to doing. I turn the telly off, I switch my phone off, and I crack on. One of the other things I do is meditation, because this calms down this sort of pressured feeling and helps me prioritize and work out what is the most important thing to do next. There are lots of common mistakes that gardeners make, I know, because I've made most of them, and in the book I've put in the design section things to think about, when you're starting, even if you're just doing a flower border. And so my common mistake was I didn't test the soil when I moved in. Consequently, I killed 3 wisterias and about 5 elderflowers and many more plants. And so you've got to think of the aspects of your garden, the soil type, and what your weather is, how hardy is your area, so that when you're buying plants, you get the right plants for the right place. When planning a new project, garden notes will really help you. You'll have an area to draw out the design, graph paper, an area to take notes of the sort of plants you're looking for, and lots of pointers of what to think about when you're starting a new project. And you'll be keeping everything on one place, not putting something on the back of a piece of envelope. So, you won't lose it, and you'll be organised, and your project is going to be great. Gardening can be quite hard work, and I did find my garden overwhelming at one stage, so I redesigned it. I would say, little and often is the approach, rather than to spend too much time. And I've got a good section in gardening notes, explaining how to do this and how to, put your health back together if you have had a heavy day in the garden. But enjoy it and keep on top of it. And, it is work, but it's good for you. And, the results of your hard work will be wonderful. You get it wrong in gardening. I made my life really difficult by planting a lot of yuccas. I wanted structural and evergreen interest, but I hadn't quite realised how pointy they were, and they were at a high level, so it stopped me reaching anything else or weeding beneath them. I couldn't cut them because they have great big thick flowers. So it took me 11 years, but I dug them out last week, and I feel completely invigorated, and I can now access the space, and I've got a whole new planting area. So if you've made a mistake, don't wait 11 years, change it. I'm an amateur gardener, but now I find myself in the position of sharing knowledge on the television and in articles and in garden notes. So I have to do a lot of research, but I love that because I'm learning more and more as I go on. So it's a great job, and with these huge benefits. I've got my gardening knowledge over the years from watching television, listening to radio and reading magazines, but most of all from my mum and my friends. And gardeners, we love to share, and so I put a lot of this information into garden notes because I think if it was useful for me, it'll be useful for the readers, and I hope it will be. When I was writing garden notes, you have to have an interesting balance between creativity and practicality. And sometimes people can get lost in creativity, but because I've got a disability, I have to be practical, and so that's a real element that I brought to the process. I do tend to waffle on a bit, so I'm learning to edit the way I say things and the way I write things, which has been a really useful experience and is ongoing. My new book, Sue Kent Garden Notes, is published by Graphic, and it is available from W.H. Smith's, from Waterstones, from Foyles, and from bookshops worldwide.